Not one, not two, but three areas of potential tropical development in the Atlantic. We're beginning to wake up the season. Hi friends, Rusty back here at Meteo Mundo. We're your home for Caribbean weather. I've got all the details on these systems. We'll talk about where they're going, looking at the models coming up. We're going to start off the video with the active weather across the area on this Monday. So what's happening now, and then we'll get into what's going on with these three areas of potential tropical development. We've had some pretty decent storms for today across portions of Hispaniola, Cuba, Jamaica, the Cayman Islands. Thunderstorms abound, a good amount of lightning with this. We'll start off in Jamaica. Look at the thunderstorms developing interior locations earlier on this Monday afternoon and then building north from St. Mary, St. Anne parishes back over towards Trelawney, St. James, and Hanover. So some good thunderstorm activity. That lightning count, well over 500 lightning strikes in a 15-minute time frame. A little bit earlier today, breezy winds in Montego Bay, a little bit drier along the southern coastline back towards Kingston, Portmore, and Spanish Town. Few thunderstorms developing over the Cayman Islands at the hour. They're a little bit more scattered in nature, but a few rumbles of thunder over Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, and Cayman Brac. Again, portions of the eastern side of Cuba likely to see some thunderstorms and additional development over portions of the Dominican Republic and Haiti. Now, again, you're getting your 5-day forecast at the bottom of your screen and a lot of information across your area, including those tropical areas as well. I want to show you the surface analysis. The reason why we're getting the thunderstorms in the areas I just mentioned is there is a robust tropical wave moving through it. No, it's not going to organize. It's not going to develop into anything at the lower levels, but there's a lot of tropical moisture coming with it. On the heels of that, another weak tropical wave just east of the Lesser Antilles is going to freshen up the winds, but then the two more impactful tropical waves back in the main development region of the Atlantic, those are the ones that we're going to have to keep an eye on as we get into the latter part of this week. Additional scattered showers and thunderstorms are trying to develop over portions of the northern sides of the Bahamas, but right now they're fairly isolated in nature. Can't rule out a passing shower over Grand Bahama this afternoon and the Abacos, kind of developing on the east side and then swinging their way back west, but a fresh wind will come along with that from time to time as well. It's a quieter afternoon through most of the peninsula, the Yucatan Peninsula, back to the northern sides of Central America. A couple of isolated thunderstorms there. Farther south that you get, obviously the Central American gyre is still in effect, and so we're seeing some very breezy conditions across portions of Costa Rica and Panama. A lot of fresh seas on the Pacific side of things and some rumbles of thunder that have been able to work their way into the Caribbean side as well. You want to speak out about wind. This is going to be one of the next headlines, is that these fresh winds that we've seen in our area are going to continue. In an El Nino, we get very brisk easterlies. That shear at the lower levels really rips apart the storms, which is why things have been very inactive so far. But we'll talk about how things could be changing a bit to a little bit more favorable atmosphere, if you will, overall coming up through the rest of August. But your winds from Ponce to San Juan, Arecibo, St. Croix, St. Thomas, and St. John, 25 to 30 mile an hour breezes today. It's not helping the heat. Heat advisories in effect for Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Feels like temperatures up to 105. Winds are not as fresh across the Lesser Antilles for today, but it's also been a relatively dry forecast in these areas. Going to start to see some moisture return to places like Trinidad and Tobago. A few thunderstorms off the western coastline of Trinidad earlier today, but they're moving away from the island. We are going to start to see more moisture beginning to come in. Obviously, I'm going to talk a lot more about these tropical potential development areas coming up, but moisture, winds, that's going to be the big forecast, kicking up the sea conditions across portions of the Lesser Antilles, especially into the Windward Islands. You want to talk about some wind for today as well. Oranjestad, Aruba, 37 mile an hour wind for today out there. Very fresh conditions. And speaking of fresh winds, by the way, if I go back here and I bring back on our wind gusts, if you happen to be viewing us today somewhere along the northern Gulf Coast states of the United States, look at these winds. That's an offshore oil platform that had over a 50 mile an hour breeze for today. Thunderstorms are kicking up rather well there. And then we have this potential development area north of Bermuda, which we'll highlight as well. So let's get into the forecast, friends. As we do so, I'm going to ask you to take a quick second, hit that like button for me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, welcome to a fantastic home for Caribbean weather, a fantastic weather community. Hopefully you're liking the new version of Meteo Mundo as well. We're going to now bring on our marine forecast for over 25 major harbors, areas of interest fishing-wise, and major cruise ports as well. Back to our weather headlines. Let's talk about the three different potential development areas. The first one we're going to talk about, and you'll find the information scrolling at the bottom of your screen, is this area in yellow. It's the closest to the Eastern Caribbean. Let's zoom in and give you the details on this. At this point in time, there's still only a 10% chance of development with this system. I'm going to bring on the high resolution visible satellite imagery, and you can see that it's still a broad, disorganized area of showers and storms. So over the weekend, it hasn't become more organized, but this is a tropical wave that is likely to take more of a due west path and stay at the lower latitude. So despite the fact this one is likely to not develop, there's still an opportunity, but it's not likely to develop. This is the one that's going to bring the brisk winds, the elevated sea conditions, and gusty showers across all of the Lesser Antilles later this week and into the weekend. So especially into the Windward Islands. If you live in places like Trinidad and Tobago, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, like Carriacou and Bequia, Barbados, St. Lucia, up towards Martinique, these are areas that I would keep a very vigilant eye on the progression of this potential development region. Again, it's only 10%. We'll look at the models coming up, not a high chance of development, but it's going to bring some impacts to these areas. It could even bring enough rain where we could have some flooding conditions. Now, there is the opportunity that this thing wants to swing a little bit farther to the north, and if so, places from Martinique north could be more directly impacted, including Dominica, Guadeloupe, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Antigua, Barbuda, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Bart's, and Anguilla. However, when we go back over to our weather headlines and look at development area number 2, this is the one that might have a little bit more impact on that area if it can hold together, because this is the stronger one. I'll show you the infrared satellite imagery. Now, again, this one just emerging off of the West African coast, right? So we have a cluster of thunderstorms developing. So we have a 10% chance in this one area. We have a 60% chance. That's why we're in an orange with this one. And we're very close to getting a cherry, guys. We're very close to that 70% threshold. Now, this one is likely to gain north latitude a little bit quicker, but still could try and make a run to the northern side of the Lesser Antilles or the Leeward Islands as we get towards the end of this week and early next week. This is the one with potential greater impacts. When we look at the models, the one that hopefully we'll miss our entire area, but we'll have to see how this plays out. Now, the third one to keep an eye on is going to be the one that just was issued for today, and it's a weak system north of Bermuda. Now, this one is in the cooler waters of the North Atlantic. If it develops into anything, it's likely to be a hybrid system as it moves away into the north central Atlantic, and this is the storm that we like to see, one that's not going to be directly impacting any landmass. So we think for the most part here, could kick up some sea conditions in Bermuda in the next 24 to 48 hours, but that's about all that I would expect out of that. So let's get into what the models show. Your AI ensemble members. Here comes our first development area beginning to weaken. Second one on the heels of that may try and make a little bit closer run again to portions of the northern side of the Lesser Antilles. Most of the models keep this a little bit away from the area, but it could be a close call as we get to this time next week, and something I'm going to be very closely monitoring. Certainly the highest opportunity we've had the entire Atlantic hurricane season. As quiet as it has been, it begins to ramp up here as we get into the second week of August. Cristobal is the next named storm. GFS ensemble members as well. You'll start to see some development with the second system. The first one with the 10% chance the GFS ensembles don't pick up on any development. Again, slow, decently low in latitude, trying to make a run towards the northern side of the Lesser Antilles as we get over the weekend or early next week. Now, this is not as conducive for quicker development as it's in the southern Atlantic, maybe actually developing a little bit more in the western Atlantic as it begins that turn east of the Bahamas, Turks and Caicos, and the United States East Coast. Again, still picking up on weak tropical waves. There's still a lot of play in these models. We'll have to see how it plays out. We've got some time to monitor that. I want to show you a snapshot of the European deterministic. So I'm showing you those ensemble products, right? 50 different members of the European, 50 different members of the GFS, but the actual deterministic model, the one model from the European, if you will, for Sunday morning, we do have one signal fairly close to Antigua, Barbuda, and Anguilla. Again, monitoring it, Surface pressure is still over 1,000 millibars. That would be a tropical storm, if anything. But again, it's the closest approach we've had through the entire Atlantic hurricane season so far. So if you do live in our Eastern Caribbean areas, keep a very close eye on the situation as we move through the rest of the week. Of course, I'll have daily updates for you. What does the rainfall look like out of this, right? Well, again, first system in yellow, a little bit far southern approach, going to bring some fresh winds and some higher sea conditions, especially into the Windward Islands. So if we look at the situation as we get into Tuesday, we'll start to see a couple of showers move in late Tuesday into early on Wednesday, and then throughout the day Wednesday and into Thursday could be the most significant impacts, the biggest slug of tropical moisture coming through. So again, TNT, Grenada, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Barbados, St. Lucia, the islands most likely impacted. Down the road, Nueva Esparta could see a couple of these showers, potentially towards portions of the ABC Islands as well, if the moisture can hold together. So Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao have an opportunity. After that, it'll be looking back to the north and what the second system wants to do on the heels of that. And you can see that there's certainly a little bit better organization, a little bit broader moisture field to come in as we get closer to the weekend. And I'll be monitoring that as we move towards, Friday and Saturday timeframe. We'll start to see some of that moisture lift farther north. It could bring some showers as far south as St. Lucia, but it's going to be more concentrated down the road, again, towards Guadeloupe, Montserrat, Antigua, Barbuda, Anguilla, Saba, St. Eustatius, St. Kitts and Nevis, on over towards portions of the British Virgin Islands as well. So again, that's what it looks like over the next several days, and I'll be watching the situation overall with these two. But the lower latitude one, weaker, but more direct impacts for the Windward Islands. The secondary one in orange, higher chance of development. Hopefully a recurve before it gets into the Eastern Caribbean, but it could be a close shave for the northern side of the Leeward Islands. And then our 10% chance up here north of Bermuda is going to be moving very quickly off towards the east. There it goes. Dissipates fast. Another cold front off the United States East Coast is actually what you see at the end of this forecast period, with some gusty conditions and some thunderstorms through Bermuda. Rainfall totals over the next 5 days. Obviously, there'll be some bullseyes towards the end of the week here in the Lesser Antilles. Some of the most exceptional rain may come beyond this 5-day forecast, likely into the early part of next week. Otherwise, the Central American gyre continues to bring some healthy rain chances across Central America and portions of the Yucatan. Scattered showers trying to finally return for Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, Haiti, portions of Jamaica, and the southeast side of the Bahamas. Now, for my mariners, for my boaters, this is a week to stay vigilant. You're obviously going to continue to see these easterlies kick through the Caribbean. These significant wave heights are 10, 12, even 14 feet. And that is with that broad sloppy system. As gale conditions are likely to develop through portions of the Caribbean, we have large wave and strong wind advisories for portions of the southern coastline of Jamaica right now, but other areas are likely to fall under small craft advisories or warnings. And I'll be monitoring that situation, but the combination of those two and the inherent strong easterlies that we've had are likely to continue to kick up significant wave heights in these areas for the rest of the week. So again, recapping the situation across our region right now: 10% chance with the area in yellow, 60% chance with the area in orange. It's the Windward Islands with the best chance for some sloppy rain and just some tropical downpours out of the area in yellow. We're going to have to monitor the area in orange for potential greater development. Again, Cristobal is the next name of the Atlantic hurricane season. How that could play out down the road, especially for the northern and the eastern sides of the Caribbean, and then also scattered showers and thunderstorms with the tropical wave moving west across Jamaica and other areas as well. Friends, I'm out of time. You got a question about the forecast, feel free to drop it in the comments section below. While you're down there, thanks for taking a quick second, liking and subscribing. Have a great rest of your day. I'm keeping a close eye on things, and I'll see you tomorrow with your latest forecast.